This is the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Kendall of the notaballerina.com travel blog. Every episode I'll share travel tales from several fellow travel lovers, and together we hope to entertain and inspire you, remind you of some of your own great travel experiences, and encourage you to hit the road again soon. Hello and welcome to episode 220 of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. It's appropriately the last episode for 2020, and being one of those even-numbered, round-numbered interviews, it's time for something a bit different, which is all very good timing, really. So this one, I'm titling it Goodbye 2020 and My Son Interviews Me. So it's a mixed-up episode to farewell the good and the bad of this crazy year, 2020. And also thanks to my friend Tracy Croak, who had a fabulous idea to get my son Ruben to write some questions and interview me. So that's coming up. But before that, I wanted to kind of just reflect a little bit on 2020, the craziest year for travel ever. And not generally in a good way. We all know why, thanks COVID-19. And 2021, I think, will be somewhat better, but it's not going to be a miraculous recovery from January 1st, is it? But things are looking up in some ways. So anyway, let's not dwell on that either. We'll just take what comes when it comes. But let's, first of all, I want to say a big thanks to all my listeners, because 2020 has actually had surprisingly a lot of good in it for the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. You might remember, especially if you're in the Thoughtful Travellers Facebook group, that in March, when COVID struck and the world stopped and we all stopped moving and travelling, I noticed that several travel podcasts I follow had stopped producing episodes, and I wondered, should I do the same? Was there no appetite for a travel podcast at that moment in time? But I asked about this in the Facebook group, and overwhelmingly everyone said, keep going. And it proved to be the right thing. And I think perhaps because the Thoughtful Travel Podcast isn't particularly destination focused, it didn't matter that you couldn't go travelling straight away. You still wanted to listen and reflect on your own travels and hear the stories from others. So thank you very much. So just during this year in 2020, I have had over 192,000 downloads of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. That's frustratingly short of 200,000 for the year, which would be, like just a lovely round number, unless I have a particularly massive last couple of days of the year. So tell all your friends to download like 200 episodes each and we might get there. But no, I'm kidding. It's a huge number. Like it's overwhelming to me to think that so many people have listened to so many episodes of me. I understand better why they listen to my fabulous guests, but still, it's amazing. So thank you so much. I find it incredible. Also incredible is the fact that it has been downloaded this year in 160 countries. Some of them only once, it must be said. Like some of the one-only downloads were in Ghana, Armenia, the Bahamas, and Zambia. But how cool that at least once the Thoughtful Travel Podcast has been listened to in those countries. It's way better travelled than I am, put it that way. Now, I think I did this last year. I can't remember it, but in case you're curious, I thought I'd tell you the top 10 countries in order of downloads. So they are from the most downloaded to the 10th most downloaded: United States, Australia, the United Kingdom, Germany, Canada. In 6th place, Taiwan, Japan, Brazil, Russia, and in 10th place, Spain. So if you're in one of those countries, then apparently you have a lot of fellow listeners nearby. So it's pretty cool. I love seeing where my podcast has travelled to. I was also very excited this year that the Thoughtful Travel Podcast got mentions in all sorts of places, like most recently in the Washington Post, which is a really exciting one, and Travel and Leisure, in the Times in the UK, all kinds of cool places, which, really makes me think, hey, I'm making something worthwhile. I also, as always, love, the most, equal most with interacting with my listeners, is the guests I get to interview. And there was like all sorts of highlights this year. Obviously, I got to interview Paul Theroux a couple of months back, which was really nerve-wracking, but turned out to be really thoroughly enjoyable. And equally exciting was back for episodes 200 and 201 when I decided to interview just ordinary listeners, so not travel writers, not bloggers, not tour leaders, not anything, just normal everyday listeners. And oh my goodness, I still remember recording each of those interviews, and it was just a pure pleasure to chat with each of those listeners, and those episodes will forever be some of my very, very favourites, I know. What else did we do this year? Oh, this is the year, in fact, in 2020 when I started the Thoughtful Travellers book club, and that has been a lot of fun. It's made sure that I read more great travel books, and we've had some, fabulous ones. Oh, and a huge shout out to Justin, who has become willingly, I think, although I didn't ask him many times recently. I just said, hey, book club's on this date. Are you free? And so I love co-hosting our book club chats with Justin. So thanks for that. It's so much more fun to do it with a co-host there. And of course, thank you to everyone in the Thoughtful Travellers group. There's now around 1,100 members, and I love that it's so diverse in age and geography, but very single-minded in being a group of thoughtful travellers. And there's so many good conversations we have there, and everyone is just super respectful of different opinions, and everyone's willing to share their own stories and ideas and photos. And I just love being able to chat with fabulous fellow members of the Thoughtful Travellers group. So in terms of travel in 2020, definitely, I think like many of you, I did less travel than ever. Fortunately, I did sneak in an overseas trip in January before COVID hit, but it was just a brief one, and it wasn't, the aim was to hang out with our good buddy Cham. So hello, Cham. It was great to see you, and I'm really glad that we made that trip to Kuala Lumpur in January. But, of course, I will always remember that on the way home, so we were there for a week or so, and on the way home, it was the first time that we wore a mask on a plane, and it was, the COVID was kind of beginning to be, well, it was just starting. Who knew what it would become? But I did manage to do some local trips. So I had a fabulous trip out to wildflower country here in Western Australia with Di Bortoletto. Thanks for that, Di. That was just a great fun trip. And after promising for several years to go and visit my friend Joe in Bunbury and Pam in Busselton, I've actually managed to go and visit both of them twice. So I've been exploring more of the southwest of Western Australia, which is a beautiful, beautiful part of the world. And with Ruben, my son, we did have a few days up in Cervantes, a couple of hours north of Perth, visiting the Pinnacles Desert and seeing the coastline there. So all of these were fabulous trips, but I really, really, really miss getting my teeth into some place, new and different. I miss planning and reading and daydreaming. And right now we should have been in Germany last week and probably Switzerland this week. And when that failed, as it obviously we knew fairly early on, we weren't going to be able to be let out of Australia in time for a December trip to Europe because the borders are very much shut. But the state border did open briefly to New South Wales, and we should have been hopping on a plane to Sydney in a couple of days' time, but that's now also been cancelled. So we will be here in Western Australia for a little bit longer. But, it'll all work out in the end. And when we do get away, even Ruben, my son, said to me when we were planning or deciding would we book flights to Sydney, at the moment it seemed like there was no COVID practically anywhere in Australia, so it seemed an eminently sensible thing to do at the time. But he said, I just want to get out of Perth. And I love Perth, and so does he, I'm sure. But it is, the change of scenery thing when you're used to doing it often, it's hard not to have it. Now, the other good thing that happened during the COVID year, and you might remember from episode 210, I mentioned I had been writing a thoughtful travel book. So at the moment it has the working title of Why We Must Travel. It's all about all of the research-backed reasons that travel is really, really good for us. So obviously because I had some more time at at home, I was able to write that book. And I had a couple of great friends helping me out while they were also writing their books. They know who they are, so thanks for that, you two. And I thought I'd give you a bit of an update that I had a couple of sessions of what they call literary speed dating, which is as horrifying as it sounds. 3 minutes in a Zoom room with a literary agent. And I got to meet with two agents who, after seeing me pitch or listening to me pitch my book, both of them asked to see more. So that was not that long before Christmas. So there are two agents looking at that now. Keep your fingers crossed for me that at least one of them loves it, because that would be a bit exciting. So all in all, when I put it all together like that, I feel that there was actually a lot of good that came out of 2020. But I don't want to have another year exactly the same as 2020, and I hope that 2021 lets us, spread our wings just that little bit further. I know in other parts of the world you've been travelling more than we have, but down here in Australia, because we had almost eliminated COVID, then we have kind of, quite different border controls. So, and I'm grateful for that, because it means we live in a very safe place and we can do a lot of normal things without many restrictions, but it does mean we're stuck here. So anyway, pros and cons, and it is what it is. So that's 2020. Hopefully 2021 just brings us a little bit more, a little bit more of interest. Now, speaking of being of interest, I hope that the interview that I've recorded with my son Ruben is of interest. I asked him to just write his own questions, and I had a quick look at them before we chatted, but I didn't, it was really just to check that they were not completely insane. I didn't think about my answers at all. So what you hear in our interview is my completely spontaneous answers, and he's a tween, so he has his own version of the world and I think a bit of attitude, but he loves it because, he's a tween. So anyway, without further ado, as they say, I will play you the interview that I recorded this morning where Ruben is interviewing me with some questions about me and my travels. Well, thanks, Ruben, for coming to interview me today, and I know you've got some questions, so take it away.
Why did you start a travel podcast?
I don't know, because it's a lot of work, but luckily I love it. I loved listening to podcasts and I loved traveling, and so I guess at some stage, nearly 5 years ago, it seemed like the right thing to do. And I love it. So I guess I try lots of things, I start lots of things, and then I keep going with the ones that I like, and that's one of them.
What is your favourite city you've ever visited?
Oh, now I wish I had thought about this before I answered, because I decided to be spontaneous. Favourite city visited? Does Osaka count?
Have you visited it?
Well, I lived there. Does that count?
Yeah.
Okay, Osaka. Because amazing food, interesting people, crazy culture, lots of good stuff going on.
If you had to move to a different country to live, what would it be?
Is it like to live forever?
Yes.
Forever and ever. Okay. I don't really know. I love the idea of living somewhere in Scandinavia, but I'm not sure I could cope with the winter. I really love Japan, but I don't want to live there forever. I really, really like Australia, but I have to move somewhere new, do I? Mm-hmm. Okay. Canada, because I think it's similar to Australia, just in a more convenient part of the world.
If you could go to any city in Australia, granted there's no COVID, where would you go?
Well, what's the date? In about 3 or 4 days, we were meant to fly to Sydney, weren't we? Mm-hmm. So I guess I would say Sydney, just because I'd got kind of excited about going and was looking forward to seeing all my New South Wales friends.
Kind of excited?
Okay, all right. I tried not to get too excited. But if I could go anywhere for no other particular reason, I'd want to go somewhere I've never been before, I think. And there's not many places I haven't been, but Darwin would be one of them.
How many countries have you visited?
I haven't checked my list lately. It's somewhere in the 40s, maybe around 45, I think.
What is the longest train ride you've ever been on?
Like in one go, or like, does the Trans-Siberian count? No. Okay, so but it must do. The longest time I've stayed on a train at once was 3 nights for part of the Trans-Siberian. But the one that felt like the longest was somewhere going up the Vietnamese coast like 15 years ago because the train was really, really, really late. And I think it took, I don't know, about double the time to get there. It was supposed to take maybe 8 hours and it took 15 hours or something. And I thought I was never, ever going to get off that train.
Mm-hmm. How long was your longest travels?
I guess probably like the longest time I was travelling non-stop and didn't live somewhere would be when I was travelling between my job in Japan and my job in Slovakia. And I think it was like from June till September. So that would probably be the longest like backpacking stint I ever did.
Would you rather travel to South America or Scandinavia?
That's a good one. I know you've got a few would you rather questions lined up for me. They're a bit curly. I've never been to South America, so that is a very strong contender. But I really love Scandinavia, and I haven't been back to Norway since I was a kid. And I've only spent like less than 10 days in Finland and a couple of weeks in Denmark, a day in Sweden with you. So it's pretty tough, but having never been to South America, I think I'd have to choose that. But it's close.
Would you rather eat crickets or sit in a room with durian for an hour?
This is disgusting.
I know it's meant to be.
But I don't, so I sit in the room with the durian, but I don't have to eat it.
It's because it doesn't taste bad.
Because it doesn't taste as bad, it just smells worse. Yeah, okay. How are the crickets? Like, in what form are the crickets? Are they fried?
Yeah.
Fried?
Yeah.
Still, an hour sitting with that smell is a lot of time. I think I would rather eat the crickets.
Wow.
Which one would you pick?
I would probably eat the crickets.
You would eat the crickets too?
Yeah. Would you rather get lost in a place with no cell coverage or have to climb a mountain with no equipment?
First of all, I want to pick holes in your question because cell coverage, I thought you were Australian, not American. So, rather get lost in a place with no mobile coverage or climb up a mountain with no equipment. I actually quite like getting lost. It's kind of fun. So I would totally choose...
But in the middle of nowhere, I meant.
Like in a desert?
Well, not a desert,
But like not in a city?
No.
Oh, okay. I thought you just meant that I didn't have mobile coverage, but you mean that's like in the middle of nowhere. Or have to climb up a mountain with no equipment. Oh, I feel like on the mountain at least there might be other people. Are there no people in this place where I get lost with no mobile coverage?
Place.
Oh, both of these are terrible options. I think that the mountain might be more risky for me because I'm not a good climber. So I would rather get lost in a place with no mobile coverage. But actually, I hope neither ever happens.
Would you rather not be ever able to go to a foreign country or go to a country where nobody understands you and you don't understand them?
So the choice is to never ever go to a foreign country again or go to a country where nobody understands me and vice versa.
No, live in a country where no one understands.
Ah, but I assume over time I could learn the language, right?
No.
No, like it's impossible.
Yeah.
So either I have to never travel again or I have to live somewhere where nobody understands me and I can't understand them. Huh. Oh, that is quite a conundrum. I don't like having had this year where we couldn't go to any foreign countries, where it's nearly exactly a year since we were in a foreign country. I don't think I could cope with the rest of my life like that. So I think I would rather go somewhere where nobody understands me because there's always a way. I could just use pictures and stuff.
Okay. Now, finally, why do you like traveling so much?
Oh, lots and lots and lots and lots of reasons. I'm very curious, a bit like someone else I know.
Definitely not me.
Definitely you. So I like to learn new things and see new things and have new experiences. And I love tasting new foods and I love the inspiring feelings I get from travel. And I love just being away from home because I don't have to, cook or vacuum or take you to school or get you ready for school. And I know it's more fun traveling with you than trying to make you go to school every day. And I just come home from a trip like a fresh new person. And that's what I really love about it.
Okay.
Any more questions?
No, I just said last one.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Okay.
Can you leave what part is?
Yes, all right. Oh, dear. All right, thanks, Rubes.
Okay, bye.
So there you go. I hope you have learnt something new about me and my travels. And Ruben especially twice asked me to make sure I left in his final bit where he was a bit snarky. So he likes the snark, but luckily I love him and he's a great travel companion, so it's all good. Anyway, thank you so much for listening to episode 220 of the Thoughtful Travel podcast for the last time this year, and I will be back in a week with the first episode of 2021 because there's no rest for the wicked, as they say, and because I'm not going away anywhere, no fortnight in New South Wales, so I'll have plenty of time to record, so it's all good. Thanks again, as I said earlier on, to all of you fabulous, fabulous listeners, for everyone who's messaged me or posted in the group or said something to me in some online fashion, or some of the fabulous listeners I got to speak to in person. Without fail, I love getting messages. It doesn't get old. Even if I've had a few of them, I still love to hear that people have, enjoy listening to the podcast. I love it when someone sends me a picture of where they've been listening to it. It blows my mind that it gets listened to in, all kinds of places around the world. So even if I can't travel, at least my voice is, I suppose. So that's, it's a wonderful thing. So anyway, I'm full of gratitude to everyone involved. So thank you again so much. And let's hope that in 2021 we can have a bunch more great podcast episodes, some wonderful guests, and some more travels, let's hope. And wishing you all the best and a happy new year, and I'll be back in 2021. As always, thank you so much for listening. This has been another episode of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. Show notes and other information are at notaballerina.com/podcast. Join me again soon for another chat about why we travel. Bye for now.